Sleep tight.
Sleep
Don't
tight.
let the Muppet grab your toes at night.
You themed this episode, which is an Encounters episode, nightmarish.
Let's find out what kind of nightmares you have, shan't we?
Hello. This is Two Girls, One Ghost.
Two girls, one ghost.
I don't know why I'm gripping my microphone so intently.
It's like an emotional support.
It is. We are your
Microphone.
ghostesses. That is Sabrina. Whoa.
What? Did you mean to do that?
No. That is
Maybe you should
Corinne.
ungrip.
I am Sabrina.
Hands off.
Do you want to be me today?
Sure.
Okay.
No, I can't. I chose kind of nice ones. You themed this episode, which is an Encounters episode, nightmarish.
How'd you pick nice ones for this?
Well, because there were nightmares that became nice.
Okay, well,
I have a little bit of everything. but-
yeah, it's a little spice. Well, I picked scary nightmares. But I
Nightmares.
also found things
Well,
that
you
were
added ish, so that gave
Well,
me leeway.
because the ish was that it was a nightmare or a nightmare-ish type of experience.
Okay.
So I tried to find ones that were waking nightmares, but also a nightmare. When's the last time you had a nightmare? Let's start there. Why do I feel like this is therapy?
Like last night.
Really?
I have nightmares every night. Do you not?
I mean, I have nightmares a lot, but what was your nightmare about? I more dream a lot.
Oh, I'm more likely to remember my dreams because I have nightmares every time.
What
But
are
if
your,
I have a regular dream,
what are your
I'm
nightmares
trying to.
about?
I'm trying. Oh, they're usually pretty fucked up.
Yeah, well, of course. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. There's usually like death.
Blood. I feel like your nightmares are very much like your real life anxieties playing out.
Yeah, some of them, but then some of them are like monsters and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Because mine
But-
are never like my reality.
Oh, really? Mine's at least like this reality. There could be something that comes into it that's a monster-ish or like possession-wise, but like I'm in the world as we know it.
Yeah, I feel like my nightmares, I'm often someone else. Maybe it's a past life.
Interesting.
And they're not like the most grounded in reality type of things. But let's find out what kind of nightmares you have, shan't we?
This is from Kendra. It's called Childhood Night Terrors. Okay, so there's
Okay.
There's a terror.
Nightmare-ish, yeah.
UFO crash and Bigfoot or a mountain hermit. Whoa, Herbie the mountain hermit.
Herbert crab. Actually, oh my gosh, tangent for a second. I have been going over to the like little beach near me, and it's a very rocky beach.
Mhm.
So I like to wear shoes into the water. And thank goodness I did and do, because monster freaking crab just clicking away as I was like coming out of the ocean.
Yeah, as a teen, I thought water shoes were so dumb looking, and now I don't ever not wear them.
Oh, I love my water shoes.
They're so nice.
They're literally just my sneakers, and I wear them into the ocean. And then
You don't have real water
no,
shoes?
I have real water shoes, but I couldn't find them the other day, and so I wore my old pair of like thin Nike running shoes.
Jackie.
They feel the
That's-
same as a water shoe. Like that's how light they are as sneakers.
Oh, I guess my water shoes are like water sandals. They look like Tebas, basically.
Oh.
There's just a strap on, but they're super thick rubber soles.
I go full. I want the ugly tan line.
You want like completely covered,
yeah, full
like you're wearing a
coverage.
sock in the
Yeah.
water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which maybe that makes sense because I feel like you are more of like an ocean dweller,
Thank
whereas
you. That's such a kind thing to say.
my water shoes were purchased specifically for floating down the river in
You're a lazy
Vermont.
river dweller.
So I'm lazy river. I've got like little rocks. There's not giant crabs coming for me. And
I'm a
nibbling off my
mermaid and you're the
toes.
Loch Ness monster.
That's correct. I'm
I
champ.
feel like that is the most accurate description of the two of us, actually.
I feel it.
You really are Loch Ness monster.
Yeah.
And I'm a mermaid that you should be scared of, but will also lure you in.
What's my thing? I just pop up every 50 years and then Everyone goes, whoa, it's huge. And then it goes down.
You're a mystery. You stay hidden from the world, and you're more creature than you are human. And knowing you, that's a compliment. If I were you, which earlier I thought I was, that's a compliment.
I have a lot more hair than an amphibian, but
no one's seen Loch Ness close up.
True. We have no idea.
Yeah.
Maybe the baby hairs all over.
Nightmares. Where are we?
Hello, Corinne, Sabrina, and Leia, my ghostly ghostesses. I've been listening for a few months, and your voices have kept me company while I'm at work, so thank you. I can't say I'm a believer, but I love listening to your stories. Interesting, given your subject line.
I'm not going to shame you because you're listening and we need the numbers, so thank you, but
I don't think I have any paranormal experiences, but I do have 3 stories that you girls might enjoy, so let me jump into it. Okay. And then proceeds to tell 3 paranormal stories.
This is common.
This is common. This is the normal formula of emails people send us.
I've never had anything paranormal happen, but here's 12 stories.
Whatever you need to tell yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you for emailing us.
Yeah.
As a young child, I often had night terrors and sleep paralysis. None that I could remember except for one. When I was around 8 or 9, I had these reoccurring nightmares. I would wake up and not be able to move or speak. I was able to look from side to side, and next to the side of my bed would be a Muppet-looking monster standing there watching me. And I was terrified of him. Every night he would come and tell me these horrific things. He would tell me how he would hurt me, how he would torture me, how he could hurt my family. And this would go on until I would finally be able to fall back to sleep. And this happened every single night.
This is terrifying.
Right? Until one night, he came to visit me, but this time with 2 smaller Muppet creatures. He very casually explained to me that he had to retire because he was a father now. These were his kids. He wished me well, and I never had a dream of him again. I have no idea who he was or what he was.
What?
Right? This feels so Monsters, Inc.
Well, clearly the people he passed down this business to did not do their job.
Yeah, maybe the assignment never got sent to anyone else.
Well, he introduced her to the 2 new ones.
No, those were his kids.
Oh, those were his kids?
Yeah. He was a father now.
It was bring your kids to work day?
It was bring your kids to work day to quit your job.
It's also very polite to give notice to all of your victims that you're leaving.
And it's just so bizarre because it sounds like personality-wise, he totally switched it up. It went from being this terrifying, maybe he was good at his job, great at his job.
Yeah.
And then he just came and was like, you know what? I'm so sorry, but I can't see you anymore. I'm a family man now.
Well, I do like that having children really changed his outlook on life.
Changed his ways.
Now he's wishing her well rather than describing how she's going to die in horrific ways.
I wish you well. What is this? I love it, though.
I love it so much. I would be okay
menacing little creature.
This menacing creature with his children.
Yeah, he changed his ways.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah, this listener is so not haunted.
My next story takes place on New Year's Eve. At this time, I was living with my sister and 3 other roommates, and this was during COVID, so we were celebrating with our little social bubble, which included my boyfriend. While my sister was making dinner, she sent my boyfriend and I to go get more butter. So off we went to the nearest gas station. With the butter secured, we started...
Was this a dinner with corn and bread? Because I'm what do you need the butter for?
I don't know. Good stuff. Everything good. I actually picked this email because of something you said in a previous episode.
Oh.
With the butter secured, we started making our way back, and that's when we saw a literal fireball in the sky, plummeting towards the ground. It was far in the distance, and it would have made a big impact outside of the town and the countryside, so I yelled, "What the fuck is that?" Pointing at the sky, almost causing my boyfriend to drive off of the road. We stared in pure confusion and curiosity, but unfortunately, we were on a time crunch and we could not go to investigate. So on the way home, we discussed what the hell that could have been. Right. An airplane, a UFO, what was it? I searched the local news for reports of an airplane crash the following days and for the following weeks, and nothing, not a word about this. So what in the freaky fuck was that? Were there unlucky aliens who crashed?
Huh.
Isn't that weird?
Or is it just like what I saw, where it was some space debris
But it's like,
entering
why
our
doesn't that make
atmosphere?
the news? When there's a meteor shower,
But
it
I
makes the
do
news.
feel
But
like
like
space-
a giant fireball crossing into our...
I feel like space debris is constantly coming through our atmosphere, though.
It feels odd to me that like we'll get notifications to like watch a comet or this or that, or there was a tornado that almost made a funnel in like northern New Hampshire or whatever. But if a giant fireball is going across the sky and it looks so large that it could end Earth,
But
that
clearly,
we're not talking about it.
Clearly, it's not large enough to end Earth because we're still
Well, it just
here.
didn't hit. Maybe.
Well,
It looks like it hits,
I think
but it
they
keeps
know.
going across.
I think they would know if an object is heading towards Earth that is too big to be like blown up by our atmosphere.
I guess my point is,
What's that movie?
why aren't we
like,
talking about it?
Don't Look Up.
Yeah.
Well, now we are talking about it.
Yeah, but like we are, but regionally, Kendra doesn't have anyone else being like, did that on Facebook, being like, did you see that weird thing in the sky?
I guess here's my other thing is if there are, because I do believe that there's constantly things just like fireballing in our atmosphere, that if the government, every time that were to happen, we're like, there's a asteroid heading to Earth, there would be way more panic.
Well, I'm not even asking the government. I'm talking about local news being like, have you looked to the skies? If you were in the Market Basket Plaza at 4:15 p.m. last night, you might have noticed a giant fireball crossing the sky. Well, here's a picture sent in from user Kendra.
But did Kendra report it to the local news for that to be talked about?
I don't know.
We're all the problem.
We're all the problem. I guess, yeah, I'm upset that no one was talking about my fireball back in like 2007, but I never told anyone.
Yeah.
My last story isn't mine. It's my grandpa's. But some things to know about my grandpa was he was an outdoorsman until the day he died. He didn't believe in ghosts. He did not believe in the paranormal, especially Bigfoot. He has always said, I've spent the better part of my life in the woods. If there was anything out there, I would know. Well, Grandpa, how the hell do you explain this one? To protect their privacy, I'm going to call my grandpa's bestie Joe. So Joe and my grandpa, they've been hunting buddies their whole life, and still in their old age, they would continue to go out together. On this particular trip, they were going to go hunt bighorn sheep in the Rocky Mountains in their special, super secret spot. This area was a large valley, and they would split up and take either side of the valley in hopes of spotting a ram. If either of them had any luck, they would hear it. And if not, they had agreed to meet at the bottom of the valley by the old hunting shack. After a long hike and no sheep, my grandpa decided that he would make his way back down to the shack and wait for Joe. My grandpa decided to wait in the shack and enjoy a slightly warm beer. So as he's waiting, and waiting a very long time, long enough to start worrying about his buddy Joe, he finally hears something approaching the shack from the dense woods. Relieved, my grandpa opens the door and calls out to Joe in the distance, Joe, I was starting to worry. And before he could finish his sentence, he realizes that is not Joe. Before my grandpa, a couple meters away, stands a large, hairy man. Too stunned to speak, he stares, and in an instant, this being spins around and sprints back into the woods out of sight.
Stop.
My grandpa couldn't comprehend what he had just seen. It was just too fast to be a man, but also too humanoid to be a bear. So what was it? If you ask my grandpa, he says this had to have been a mountain hermit that was living in that shack. But if you ask me, my grandpa saw Bigfoot.
I agree.
Love you, ladies, Kendra. And then Kendra said, and please feel free to use my name so I can have my 7 seconds of fame.
Well, now you have 15 minutes?
A lot longer than 7 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about Bigfoot first. It was Bigfoot. Yeah.
Yeah. A hermit, I'm trying to like picture, we're not like pigs that just like grow hair and turn into boars in the wild, right? Like we can become
hairier,
but
we're not werewolf hairy.
But yeah, there's not hair coating our entire body in the length that we could possibly be confused for a bear.
I'm also curious how graceful this turn was. It was like a pirouette. Was it
a plie?
Yeah, a little like curtsy and a
Did he skip away?
Yeah. But the very first experience with the night terror creature reminds me a lot of a story a listener told us on Campfire Stories. I think it was last week.
Oh,
where their daughter was having a lot of horrific experiences, and she was like, I'm not sure if this is OCD or what.
Mm-hmm.
But they had like tried to communicate using tarot cards to see like how they'll know if it was the great grandmother. Do you remember this story?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, like really, really dark, intrusive thoughts like started coming through to their daughter. And their daughter was so scared that she was like locking herself in her room. And then the minute that she said intentions and like cleared the space, it stopped.
It stopped.
It does make me think that there are these entities and these beings that just prey on people, especially children, and whisper really, really scary things into their minds.
Yeah. Which is so bizarre because I think when we've talked about it before, it's like, it's almost more understandable to think of these spirits or entities or creatures or whatever, cryptids, doing this because they're like absorbing something from it. Like they get, it's in their nature, or like it's their way to like feast on energy. But this specific story, Kendra's specific story, makes it seem like it is a complete choice. It is a job title that you hold. You apply for this job.
Right.
You get paid to do this job somehow.
And
you don't have to do it.
Right. Or you can retire.
So there's some sort of like employment branch out there that's hiring and employing creatures.
They kind of remind me of the hormone monsters a bit.
Yeah, they do.
Especially like the Muppet like feature.
It's just so weird. Ugh.
Okay. I'm going to read a listener story. And this is from our listener, Steph. She, her, or they, them. Prepare thine ears for a tale about nightmares. Hello. This is the second time I've written in. Thank you so much for sharing all the spooky, scary, and sometimes emotional stories. And thank you, most of all, for being the wonderful selves you are. So tonight, I just finished listening to Encounters 106, and I knew it was time to write in again after hearing about all of the experiences with dreams. I didn't think it would be so soon, and I definitely didn't think it would be the story that I'm about to tell, but here we are. I spent so much of that episode, Encounters 106, just being reminded of the fact that I had signs presented to me. So I'm going to tell that story. It's not just mine, however. So I will be changing some of the names of those involved. It's an uncomfortable thing to look back on now as an adult. So grab your blanket, your wine, and your cat. It's a bumpy ride. When I was very young, maybe 5, I had these awful reoccurring nightmares involving a grim reaper and a funhouse. Because of them, I still cannot go into haunted houses or fun houses to this day.
I'm so curious what it was because I had a similar one when I was little that I've talked about on this podcast.
Yeah. I would be walking down a dark hall in a funhouse filled with those neon painted arches illuminated by blacklight. And when I got down to the end, I would turn to face an old underground elevator. Standing in front of it was a grim reaper, inches away from me. He would then raise his scythe, preparing to slice me. And that's when I would wake up terrified. I always assumed it was because I watched too much Are You Afraid of the Dark because of that episode with the funhouse, which I think is called The Tale of Laughing in the Dark. I was never sure what the presence of the Grim Reaper had to do with it. But I've always had awful nightmares throughout my life, but this one has always stuck with me. I used to have night terrors, and my parents always attributed it to a new medication that I was put on. But later, my dad confessed that he believed I had actually been possessed by something this specific night. I may never know for sure, and I've had a couple minor encounters of my own, but my history of nightmares is considerably more terrifying. I'm a rather sensitive person mentally and spiritually, and I feel that that nightmare is at the root of it. Well, now I want to know what happened that one night.
Yeah. We don't learn?
No, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
So much later in my life, when I was in middle school, I had another nightmare when I was staying at my friend Sam's house. That particular night was different from a regular sleepover because it was a school night, and my mother and sister had gone out of state for my sister's field trip, and I needed somewhere else to stay to go to school and whatnot. So our parents figured that I may as well just stay there and go to school with them since I already spent so many nights over there anyway. Sam was my best friend after all, and her family was like my family. That night, I had my first nightmare featuring a Grim Reaper in years, and it was way worse than the one I had before. In this dream, I was running through a dark library being chased as the tall bookshelves around me were falling over, threatening to crush me. I tried to hide and turn the lights on so I could see where this Grim Reaper was, but all of the light switches were dead. I continued on and I found a bathroom with a light on, so I tried to hide in there, but I failed as I realized what was waiting for me. I want to give a warning that looking back on it now as an adult, this is one of the most disturbing things that has ever occurred to me in my nightmares. In the bathroom, I saw the Grim Reaper standing with his scythe propped up in his hand like a staff, next to a bathtub. And this is the content warning, it's very gruesome. In the bathtub was a little girl lying down, face down, with a long scar down her back. Not a cut like it had just happened, but a scar, like it had been there for a long time and healed over. It had clearly been made by that scythe. I think I ran away at that point in the dream, but I don't remember anything past it. When I woke up, Sam's room was mostly dark, and I woke her up because I was so scared and I couldn't go back to sleep. I was afraid she would be mad at me because she could get cranky at night, but she immediately was very compassionate and helped me feel better by turning on a lamp and putting on a CD, so it wasn't totally dark and quiet. She talked with me to comfort me for a minute and said how she understood the pain of not being able to get back to sleep after something like that because she, too, had nightmares frequently. It was a nice little moment, and before long, I did get back to sleep, and my dreams were much more pleasant after that. Though I did tell her about what happened in the nightmare itself, we shared our disturbing dreams with each other all the time, and this didn't feel that different. We were both very into writing and constantly came up with elaborate stories to tell each other. We had wild imaginations, you know? But fast forward a few years to an actual sleepover later on. Sam was at my house this time with me, my sister, and my sister's best friend, Kelly. So my sister and Kelly are a couple years younger than Sam and I, but that didn't stop us from having tons of fun, goofing off, watching movies, and being a close group of friends. We played board games, we joked around a lot of the evening, but at a certain point, Sam decided to start telling us one of the scary stories that she had been writing. Her writing is very sci-fi, and sometimes the stories get intense and even scary. Some part of what she told us spurred a conversation about nightmares, and after I told Kelly about my oldest Grim Reaper nightmares from when I was 5, and about the one I had at Sam's a few years prior, Kelly told us that she too had one involving the same Grim Reaper. From what I remember, she was 6 years old, and when she had it, it had resulted in her running from him, getting slashed down the back. And the last thing she remembered was waking up telling her dad that her back hurt. She said that he got her with the scythe down her back. As she caught on to the look of shock on my face, I realized something, and I asked her to take her ponytail out and to put her hair down for a second. The little girl in my nightmare that night that I had when I was at Sam's was Kelly. It looked like 6-year-old version of Kelly.
Oh my God, I have chills.
Here's the thing. I had not met Kelly until she had become friends with my sister just earlier that year. And I don't know how old they are, but clearly it's much older than 6. The night that I had the dream, I didn't even know she existed. Sam got up from the table, ran into my bedroom on the other end of the house, crying and freaking out. We all had a hard time understanding, but she was terrified. Why would our nightmares be connected? Why did I have it while staying at Sam's house? What did any of this mean?
Yeah.
We couldn't possibly imagine, and I still don't know what to think. It's been at least a decade and a half. After that night, we didn't really bring it up again. I'm still friends with Sam, but Kelly grew apart from the rest of us, and I don't even know if the others remember. That is the most chilling of all my nightmare stories, but I have others. From Steph.
That is so messed up. Because at first I was thinking, I was like, what if it was her when she was little and it's like the gash or like it being a scar now and healing. It's just like indicating how many times she's had the nightmare and it continues to like survive it. But what the fuck? I cannot believe.
And like the specification of the Grim Reaper getting Kelly down the back.
Down the back. And saying that her back hurt too when she woke up. It's so weird. Like, why is everyone having dreams about this one specific Grim Reaper? It feels very Pennywise for this.
It does.
One town, this one location.
Well, it reminds me kind of like Kendra's Muppet. Like, is this just a different iteration of it? And they kind of all appear differently, but it's the same type of role.
It's so disturbing.
And like, does it mean that Steph and Kelly are connected in some way? And I know that Kelly has grown apart, but maybe Steph and Kelly are going to get reconnected.
Dreams and nightmares.
I do think there is a lot more to them than we know, and there's some connectedness.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, and I feel like this episode is making me feel even more like I don't know what's going on.
I hope everyone sleeps really well after this episode.
Night, night. Sleep tight. Don't let the Muppet grab your toes at night.
Okay, I have a story called Where Do We Go When We Sleep?
It's a good question.
Hello to my favorite ghost hosts. I've been listening to you since maybe 2017, and lately I've been binging your Encounters episodes. And I find those most intriguing because I love hearing other people's experiences. I love true crime, true stories, things that are real and factual. And lately on some of your Encounters episodes, I think maybe in the 150 to 170 range, there was a question of where do we go when we sleep?
It's kind of what we just posed of like, there's something more to our dreams.
Why do we not remember dreams? And someone said that their family member or a medium told them that they couldn't remember their dreams because they were visiting their past family members. I've been tracking my sleep and found out that I am completely skipping my REM stage of sleep. I do not remember dreams, and I figured maybe that I just wasn't dreaming anymore. But after I heard your encounters, I thought maybe that this is what's happening to me. Maybe I can't remember because I'm gone visiting past loved ones.
I also feel so sad for you because no REM sleep means that you're not getting the best sleep.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
How do you feel? Do you feel rested?
Yeah. Because I get some REM sleep, but I don't ever feel rested.
Yeah. So maybe it doesn't make that much of a difference after all.
Maybe.
And also, I think I get plenty of REM, but if my REM is all nightmares, then I wake up panicked.
Yeah, then
I don't feel rested either.
Yeah.
When I was about 6 years old, my great-grandmother passed away, and the night that she passed, I remember having a nightmare and waking up crying and my grandmother coming in and asking me what was wrong. I explained to her that I had a nightmare that my great-grandma came in and told me that she would never see me again, but she couldn't explain any further than that.
Aww.
I was crying and I was asking her why can't she see me anymore? I told her I was going to miss her and that I don't want to stop seeing her. I woke up in tears, and after explaining this to my grandmother, she told me not to worry and that I will get to see my great-grandmother the next day. So we go back to sleep, and when we wake up, we get that unfortunate phone call that my great-grandmother has passed away in her sleep. Oh. That was the first time I felt like maybe I have some sort of abilities of some sort. Ooh, I'm getting chills just thinking about this.
Well, this reminds me of like a lot of the things that your family has experienced, especially with your grandmother passing away.
Yeah. And my mom has always been like told or had been given signs from other people that they're passing.
Wow.
I recall growing up and trying to make sense of that dream and what happened that night. And later in my life, my dad dated a Hopi Indian woman and their beliefs are different. And so she explained that when loved ones pass away, they have a set amount of people that they can go say goodbye to before they get to move on to the next realm. I thought maybe this explains it. She loved me enough to come and tell me that she was leaving, and I was one of those special people that got to have a message before she left our world. So fast forward to today. I'm about to be 30 this year, and my grandma passed just a year ago. I thought to myself, I'm going to be special enough. She'll come and say goodbye to me. However, that was not the case. I never got a message from her. I always wondered why. And then I told myself that she had so many people in her life. Maybe she was just making her way down the list. She'll come to me soon. I'll get a message from her. About 3 months after she passed, I had a very, very vivid dream. I wrote down that dream because it meant so much to me. However, now when I look through my notes, I cannot seem to find it. It has completely vanished. Did she not want me to record when she visited? Are those moments only supposed to last in my dreams? But last night I had a very vivid dream again. This time we were at my childhood home. My family was there, which never happens because we're not close. And my grandma seemed like she was back in her 40s, walking around, telling everyone what to do, being her same old self that I remember from when I was a kid. Not who I remember as aged or sick, like before she passed. I was so happy to see her. And the only reason I had this dream was I woke up at 6:30 to go on a hike, only to read the message that my hiking buddy canceled. So I turned off my alarm and I went back to sleep. And I feel like without the interruption to my sleep, that is when she could come through. And I saw her and felt her. I didn't want to wake up. It felt so real. But eventually I did wake up. I get on my phone as usual. And the first thing I see is a notification, a memory, a picture of me and my grandma from when I was 6, and she was the age that she was in the dream I just had. I felt like this was the sign she was telling me. I know I have chills too. I feel like this was the sign that she was telling me that she was with me in my dreams. I can only hope that that's why I don't remember my dreams each night, that maybe it's just me and her spending time together. All the love and light. Nikki.
So this is what you mean by ish. Because this is just dreams.
Well, it was a nightmare about, it feels nightmarish to be told that your loved one has passed and that you're never going to see them again. That is a childhood nightmare, like your relative is dying.
I will also say the way that the great-grandmother told Nikki feels a little bit blunt. Like,
yeah,
if I'm a great-grandmother going to tell my great-grandchild one day that I'm departing this universe, I would say, like, I love you very much. While I won't be able to hug you anymore, I'll always be here and I'll always be watching over you. Rather than like, you're never going to see me again.
We can't speak anymore. Yeah. We can't see each other.
Boy, bye.
This is a breakup. Oh my God. I didn't see this coming. Yeah. I'm 6.
Yeah. Like, excuse me?
Jeez. Yeah.
But those are really, really special.
I know.
And it's very clear that, Nikki, you have this connection to both your great-grandmother and your grandmother and just your family. And I feel like you are a very open person and that people can come visit on the other side.
And I feel like it is hard, too, because I understand Nikki's desire to be someone on the list. Like, if there even is a list. Right. Do we get a list? Do we get a say when we pass over?
Or is it just who's open and or whatnot?
Or just, just random. Like, who knows? But I understand the constantly being like, okay, well, who else has gotten a sign? Like, when is it going to be my time? Because it is hard. And it's something that most people ask for signs when their loved one passes. And it's also kind of like a hard, complicated thing to hear other people experiencing stuff with someone that you love, but you didn't.
And you didn't. And I think that's the hard thing with just spiritual communication in general. It's like, and I feel this way about aliens. It's like, why do so many other people have experiences, but me, who so badly wants to, hasn't been able to?
Yeah.
But even like with my grandfather, for example, like I've had multiple dreams with him, but my other family members, like my brother and sister, haven't. Yes, I think I'm more open to it and like I want that, but why aren't they having those,
right?
You know?
Well, even if we think about our friend who passed away, like you and I were very careful in telling what we were experiencing to some other friends because, you know, if there was a list, we were not the top to visit.
No, but we had some encounters.
Right. So, it's all, who knows what's going on or how it happens.
If I ever die, I will try to haunt all of you. You will all be on my list. If I ever die. As if, like,
that didn't even,
I'm a vampire.
I didn't even, like, register that as an incorrect statement.
Yeah, well, I'm going to die, and I will haunt all of you. How about that? Back to nightmares. So I learned something recently because I had dinner with my dad, and I feel like I have to preface this every time I talk about my dad. We have a very interesting relationship. It's complicated. He is my dad biologically, but I don't think the relationship that I have with him is what I would hope for anyone to have for a father-daughter relationship. And so keep that in mind. But
also, can I just right up front say that if he ever was willing to have a podcast and you guys wanted to do your conversations together, Dinner with My Dad is such a good title.
Well, I want to do an episode with him on our podcast.
With him or with what possesses him?
Well, that's kind of what I'm going to talk about because, so we sat down and of course, like we don't have much to talk about. So the one thing we do have to talk about is the paranormal, which is great because I love getting ghost stories. So there's a lot of stories I've shared over the years about my dad that in this dinner conversation, I realized like they're all kind of connected to the same entity and that this one entity has been following my dad for like 40 years. So basically it all starts where he was doing this business deal with someone and I think there was like some drama between them and the man kind of put like a hex or something on my dad. And that night, and I think I've told this version of the story where it was like a contract that was signed basically like proving that my dad was in the right of some, who knows. But that night, my mom and dad woke up in the house. The animals were going crazy. My dog was barking. Cats were like meowing and hissing. And that document was gone, disappeared. And I guess ever since that night, my dad has like felt this presence and sometimes has conversations with him while he's sleeping. And that the experience that we had with my sister, my dad actually thinks was this entity.
Oh. Wait, so your dad remembers, because I know he was like speaking in other languages and weird stuff was happening when he was asleep, but I didn't realize that he consciously remembered conversing with this thing.
So he like doesn't remember what they're talking about specifically, but he will wake up aware that he had had an encounter with this presence because the energy that this presence has is so palpable. And I think because in the past I've talked about how my dad did a past life regression therapy, and in that he learned that a past life was like trying to take over his current life. And that was the voice that he was like battling with at night and speaking in a different language. But now I think my dad is like, he's like, it could be that, but who knows if that past life regression was really real. But now he's like, it could be this entity that's been following me. He's like, it's been following me for over 30 years. And he's like, I don't know what it wants.
Does he want to do anything to try to figure that out?
I don't know. He also told me a bunch of other ghost stories that were great. Should I just tell one of them?
Yeah.
Okay, so my dad travels a lot to like the Middle East. So I think he was in Dubai or something. And he was at a friend's house. And they were having a pool party barbecue in the backyard. And my dad went upstairs to go to the bathroom. But he went upstairs and he like didn't fully close the door because he was like, I know no one else is upstairs. Everyone's outside. Like, I just have to pee. I'm going to like keep the door open a little bit. As he's going to the bathroom, the door is like forcibly slammed shut. And my dad's like, oh, like, okay, maybe it's just the wind. Weird. Whatever. Finishes his business, exits the bathroom, and he sees a man dressed in like traditional like Middle East garb. And the man goes, you should close the door when you go to the bathroom. There's a little girl here. And my dad was like, you're right. I'm so sorry. That was really rude of me. Like, I should always close the bathroom, like wherever I am. And I think my dad like starts to become aware that he's speaking to a spirit. And then he's like, oh, but who's the little girl? I can't remember like specifically what happened. But basically that conversation ended and my dad starts going back downstairs and he sees like this shadow of a little girl like dart through the dining room. And then he goes back outside and goes to his friend who owns the house. And he's like, so I just had and his friend immediately looks at him before my dad can finish the sentence. Is like, so which one did you talk to? Yeah. And
are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I would love to be haunted by these ghosts.
Right. And I can't
actually get to have a conversation.
Right. So I'm pretty sure the little girl is a spirit that has traveled with this man like in life. And the spirit in the house is like a new spirit that I think came forth or like is haunting the home to protect the little girl. Like he wasn't an active spirit until this guy who now owns it came into the house with this spirit girl.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's a spirit guide that's protecting a spirit. Like spirits have spirit guides.
Well, I mean, she's just a child.
She's just a little girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Dad just like looks at someone and talks to them and they're dead.
Yeah.
I have never spoken to a spirit. I've seen a lot of full body apparitions, but not so much that I'm like
conversing with them.
That they're there long enough to have conversation with me and for me to have to like my brain has to like click to be like, is this real or is this not? Like,
yeah. But then there's the flip side where he's being followed by something dark for 30 plus years.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay, so continuing on nightmares, because someone follows the rules. This is from our listener C, and it is called Encounter. I faced the demon, an update from an Encounters episode. Hello, ghostesses. I emailed you years ago, and my story was in an Encounters episode. I forget the year now, but I called myself C, so I'll continue to do that. I told you a story about me going to Germany and being told that I had a demon inside and or attached to me. I have an update for you. So C's original email was read in Encounters 116, which actually came out almost like 4 years to the date.
Oh, that we're reading this now?
Yeah. So I have an update. I will apologize for the length. It's not even that long, but I need to get it to someone who doesn't know me. I've wanted to write this to you for the last several months, but I have been nervous too. This was sent to us on Wednesday. I moved to Texas 3 years ago, and about a year and 7 months into the move, things started to get weird. I had been opening myself up to cosmic forces in the world in the form of druidry and nature-based magics under the guidance of a friend of mine who is a practicing witch. She said that I am what she called a battery, constantly giving off energy without knowing it, which caused a plethora of spirits to start visiting us. Most of them were friendly nature spirits or the occasional lost soul coming to say their piece. But that all changed one week when I began to have these horrible nightmares. And as a lucid dreamer, I occasionally get pulled out of my body. It was so surreal. In all of these dreams, nightmares, were depicted great acts of violence, murder, arson, and many other horrid things. This went on for approximately 2 to 3 weeks, and one of the worst things about these dreams was that everything happened to people I cared about, and I could do nothing. As an obvious response to this, I developed a fear of sleeping, and I would fight the feeling of falling asleep every night. Until one night I couldn't resist and I drifted into that sweet release that is sleep. However, it was not restful because that night an entity came to me. At first, it was a shadow lurking in the corner of the nightmare, then a shape in the center, and then it became the forefront of every horrid scene, only ever showing its back. In the last dream, from that night, it walked out of the darkness, this time facing forward. My heart froze, because this was something I had seen as a child and convinced myself was not real.
Ooh.
I can tell the full story another time, but to summarize, I was very sick with a high fever, and I was visited by something claiming it could make me feel better. I was 4 years old, and at that age, I accepted without understanding. I remember all of this due to the trauma that it caused, but the last thing it told me was, do not tell anyone. This horrid creature, even now to describe it has me looking around my room paranoid, but it needs to be done. It's about 5'6" with arms and legs slightly too long, but its face, God, its face. Imagine a baby's face with eyes just a little too high on the head and a mouth that was both too small and yet could smile all the way to its ears. It looked like it was covered in makeup, making its face have that classic diamonds around the eyes of like a clown. This night, in my dream, when it walked out of the darkness facing forward, it said to me, I thought I told you not to tell anyone. Now I have to hurt the one you care about most.
What in the world?
I woke up in a panic, quiet, not to wake my roommates. And that is when I felt it, the staring. I slowly rolled over to look at the side of my bed and froze. There, mere inches away, was that horrid face staring back at me. I screamed, and it laughed. All three of my roommates came bursting in. They believed me when I told them, and one of my magically inclined friends threatened it, which was a choice. My one witch friend who has been guiding me through magic even heard it laugh in defiance. Things got worse the next day. The girl I was talking to said I looked tired. I tried to lie and say it was nothing, but she could see through it. When I told her everything, she froze. She looked me dead in the eyes and said that something had been standing in the corner of her room, and it looked very similar to this.
What is with these creatures, like geographically haunting the same spot?
Well, literally in the nightmare before, the night said, I am going to hurt someone you love most.
Yeah, I guess.
And his girlfriend.
Okay, so she's just seeing it.
Yeah, for the first time.
Oh. In my mind, I thought she like already was connected to this thing. Okay.
I freaked out because at the time, she was the most important person in the world to me, and that was it. I had enough of it. One can threaten or harm me all you like, but no one and nothing will threaten those I care about. So my friend and I came up with a ritual to banish it back to whatever fucking pit it came from. That night, when I went to sleep, I called it. No, I challenged it, telling it can no longer mock me or use the darkness and fear in my heart. It fell for it, and after a few hours of reciting and channeling magic, it let out a final laugh and disappeared into the void. When I opened my eyes, I could truly feel the difference in my room. It was no longer as heavy or suffocating, and after that, I have been able to sleep fine. The nightmare went away. Now I'm living on my own with more spooky but less threatening ghosts and spirits around. Thank you for reading this. I also really don't know how far that spell through the horrid thing, so it might be back. Best regards, C.
I think what I'm realizing through this episode is that there is likely an entire slate of cryptids and spirits and demons and creatures that are only existing for nightmares and dreams.
100%.
I guess the way I was thinking about it before was like, it was kind of like a fluid thing where like they're popping up in both places. But this is really making me think that there is a dream-specific
realm.
We
don't know how this all works.
No, we don't. But I have one more story to share.
Okay. I wouldn't mind if it had more pleasantry to it. But I also would be happy if it's scary. I'm fine with anything.
It's somewhere in the middle.
Okay, good. Cool.
What does a creepy creature in the woods, waking up in the cemetery in my pajamas, and 3 ghosts of my then alive grandma have in common? Well, my grandma, apparently.
And you?
Yeah. This is unintentionally a grandma episode. We've had a lot of grandmas.
You've had a lot of grandmas.
Okay, maybe I've had a lot of grandmas.
I've had 0 grandmas. Corinne has 3 grandmas. I do have 1. In real life.
Hi, ghoulies. My name is Rachel, and I'm from Melbourne, Australia. Below are my most inexplicable experiences, all tied to one person, my grandma.
Okay.
I haven't had an experience since she passed away in 2005, with the final one being the day that she passed. But this first story is about the time that I lost time and I woke up in a cemetery. I was
terrifying.
Right. I was staying with my grandma around 23 years ago. I was 10 years old. She lived in this really quiet small town, kind of the town between towns. It only had a milk bar, a small pub, and a cemetery. At the time, maybe 100 people lived there.
Why do I love this town?
Right. Her house was, well, creepy, to say the least. I said goodnight to her, and I went to sleep in the guest room. And in the middle of the night, I woke up after having a really weird dream. I was young and I was scared, so I went to go sleep next to my grandma. She had a waterbed. Remember this for later. I fell back asleep, and when I awoke, I was sitting on the ground in the cemetery, which was about 1.5 kilometers from her house, and it was morning, and the sun was out. From what I know, I had never sleptwalked before in my life. My parents have never said anything to make me believe as much. I had somehow walked to the cemetery. I freaked out. It was freezing. I started crying. I made my way back to the house, and I was halfway back when I saw my bike on the other side of the path, thinking, did I bike here? So I picked it up and I rode the rest of the way back so fast, so filled with fear.
That's horrifying.
I arrive and I throw my bike to the side and I rush to the front door, and it's locked. I knock and my grandma answers. She's confused. She thought I was still asleep in the guest room. She'd only been awake for 5 minutes before I got there. She had just put the kettle on for tea. I told her what happened and how I had this really weird dream and I was scared and I went to go sleep in her bed. And she said she's such a light sleeper that even a creak in the floorboards would normally wake her, saying that she would have felt the movement, especially on a waterbed, if I had joined her in the bed. She would have heard the front door open. She was sure it was an old, creaky door. She checked me over. I was fine. I had a shower. We went back to the guest room. The bed was fully made up, even with the decorative pillows and my teddy bear, even though I left it a mess when I ran to my grandma's room in the middle of the night after that dream. So now we were both freaked out. We left the house and she drove me back to mine.
There's literally no explanation.
I know. I'm like, I have chills everywhere. Like that. Why is that house like rejecting her? Like a child, like
literally
forcing her
displaced
out.
her.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretending like she was never there. This experience has haunted me ever since because I'm like, was this a time slip? Was I really sleepwalking? Was I abducted by aliens?
My
I will
brain
never
went
know.
to aliens too.
Okay, so now is about a time I encountered a yowie in the woods. I was going on a short camping trip to Walhalla, which is an ex-gold mining town in Victoria, Australia. My grandma's hobby was gold panning in rivers and creeks of old mining towns, hoping to find some gold.
Love Granny.
Sometimes she had been successful with these little golden nuggets. Her friends told her of this small creek near the town where they'd found some small pieces of gold. So my grandma was like, ooh, and she invited me and my aunt to join her for a weekend trip. It was the peak of summer, and 3 people sleeping in a 2-person tent was not great. It was our final night there, and in the middle of nowhere, stinking hot, I needed to pee so bad. So I get up, I make my way about 10 meters from the tent with my torch, and I pee. I pull my pajamas up, I hear a branch crack, and then a deep, huffed breath. I spin my torch around, but I see nothing. I run back to the tent so fast, and I get inside. I wake up my aunt and my grandma. I tell them what just happened. They told me, calm down, try to just get some sleep. And then they heard the movements around the back side of the tent. We were defenseless. We had nothing but torches, a hammer that we used to get the tent pegs in the ground. My aunt crazily grabbed the hammer and left me in the tent. She went to go check, but there was nothing there.
I'd rather stay in the tent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all tried to think of what it could have been. Was it a kangaroo? An angry koala? We lay awake all night until the morning. We get up, we pack the tent, we head back to the town where we had parked our car. And as we're getting ready to go, we noticed 4 massive square-toed footprints. And then they write, damn it, being the early 2000s and no phone to just take a photo of it.
Yeah.
We left for home freaked out of our minds. It wasn't until later in my high school years that I borrowed a book from the library about Australian paranormal encounters where a man claimed to see a yowie and detailed a 4-toed squared off footprint. What the fuck? Okay, and lastly, a story called The Hallway of Ghosts.
This has so many encounters.
Right? And all has to do with grandma. One day, I was coming back from school via a shortcut through the paddock, and usually there are some very friendly horses there. They always come up to me in the past, and they're usually looking for treats.
I literally was FaceTiming my sister the other day, and all of a sudden, outside my window, I hear, the pony! You're famous in this town. And I was like, what is happening? I literally look out my window. There is a pony in Marblehead that a man walks around the streets.
What? Where does it live?
I don't know. And I've lived in Marblehead for a year now, and this is the first time I've seen the Marblehead pony.
Dude, Marblehead Pony must have a nice-ass house because there are not that many spots to house a pony.
Yeah.
There are just a few pony yards, and you have to have some serious pony cash.
But it was literally like the ice cream truck was coming because I'm not kidding. I saw, as I look out the window to look at the pony, like a couple with a stroller starts like sprinting up the street to get to the pony, and like everyone came flocking to the pony. Are you looking it up?
Yeah.
I'm so curious if it comes up.
No, there's just like a bunch of old photos of it. Keeps saying Marblehead.
Well, I'll take a picture next time. I was on FaceTime, so I showed my sister, and I was just in shock. But
oh wait,
did you find it?
There's an article from 2008 on wickedlocal.com. Things get a little bit wild on Marblehead Neck.
But Marblehead Neck is so far from where I am, and this guy was just walking his pony.
Oh, you know what?
I'll take a picture next time. Anyway, I was surprised by this pony in the street.
Wait, what the heck happened over here? This is about 2 alpacas that had got loose, made a break for it on the Marblehead Neck, which means that people own alpacas over on the Marblehead Neck.
That I'm not surprised by either.
They do have alpaca yards over there. So, okay, but back to the hallway of ghosts. One day I was coming back from school via a shortcut through a paddock, which usually had a very friendly horse. They would always come up to me, usually looking for some treats. The whole day just felt off. From when I was at school to when I was walking home, and as I was walking through the paddock, the horses didn't move. They just stared at me dead still. Weird. They knew me for sure. I always brought something for them. I carried on, eager to get home. My parents were at work. My sisters were at their after-school activities. Note that my childhood home was a very long house with rooms coming off of the sides of a long hallway. So I opened the door and I froze. In the hallway, I saw 3 figures poking their heads out from 3 rooms off of the hallway. Out of one of them was my grandma as a child. Another, my grandma in her 30s. The last, I have chills, my grandma in her 60s. I stared. They didn't move. They were like static images. As soon as I blinked, they were gone. Safe to say, I sat out on the front porch until my parents got home, and that night I woke up heavily breathing after having a horrible nightmare, which I couldn't recall any single detail of, but I was really spooked. I walked down the hall to my parents' room at the front of the house, and halfway down the hall, we get a phone call. My parents had a cordless phone in their room, and they answer it. I get to their door, we go in, we sit on their bed, and we find out my grandma had passed away. Love you gals. Love the podcast. Rachel.
I'm actually speechless.
It makes me wonder if her grandma was going through her life review at that point, and she was getting, if she's so tied to her grandma that she somehow was especially because she described it as static images, if she somehow was getting to see part of that.
I don't know.
Well, you said nightmare-ish, and this danced around a lot of nightmares and had some nightmarish experiences.
The waking up in a cemetery, nope.
No.
Yeah, usually we have so much to debrief and so many hypotheses to present, but this one, I just literally leaving me scratching my head.
Yeah.
I just.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't read this one sentence, but basically Rachel was also saying positing the question of why is this all happening around her grandma? All these experiences, which are so different, so diverse. She was was she just attracting everything paranormal?
Also, you could ask, why is this all happening around you?
That's true, Rachel. Maybe grandma's asking what's going on with Rachel. Why are all these weird experiences happening around Rachel?
Especially the way that Rachel described walking through the woods and everything being still, even the horses kind of just being frozen, makes me feel like Rachel was temporarily walking through a warped dimension that was
Mhm.
where grandma was going.
Yeah. Well, just too, everything being still and staticky and like, yeah, it does feel like life was just like, yeah, sucked away for a second.
Yeah. Damn. Okay. Well, tell us your nightmarish stories. We would love to hear them. Please email us at twogirlsoneghostpodcast@gmail.com. If you would like episodes 1 week early and ad-free and a bonus episode every month, you can join us on Patreon. Plus, we do campfire stories over there. We have book club. So many fun things. So join us over there. And
What's our next book?
we haven't picked yet because the poll closes on Friday.
Oh, okay.
But we'll announce that in the next encounters. And then this is a pyramid scheme. So you tell 2 people, make them tell 2 people, and it just goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Get
Thank
sucked.
you to get
sucked into the pyramid scheme.
Shout out to Jamie Ryan, who edits and produces our podcast. Thank you, Jamie.
And we love you all.
And we will see you on the other side.